Hello. So, last week I did a critical video on Nintendo. This week I'm going to do a little more positive one. So, Nintendo has been in the console market the longest. Seems Sony would probably be second, and maybe Sega. Xbox hasn't been in that long, but because Nintendo's been in the longest, and I have all their home consoles, I thought I'd look at my most favorite game for each console. So first off, the NES. Some of these might kind of surprise you, but whatever, it's just my personal opinion. So for NES, it's Mega Man 3. You might be like, well, why Mega Man? Why Mega Man 3 out of like the others? Because, well, Mega Man is one of my top 3 favorite video game characters. And when it comes to his 6 games for the NES, they're all good. Well, first one is meh, the other 5 are great, but the third one is definitely my favorite. Because, the plot is great, the music is epic, a lot of the robot masters look cool. There was a lot of firsts in the franchise with this game. It was the first game to have the slide, or dash, whatever you want to call it. It was the first game to have the select screen where Mega Man's in the center and he looks at like the bosses as you highlight them. Rush and Proto Man made their debut in this game. And one of my favorite memories that I always think about when I play this game, I actually talked about this in another video, but jeez, that was 5 years ago. Anyway, maybe in the youngest of 3, and my dad had this friend named Jimmy who had 2 daughters. And I remember one time we were visiting him. So keep in mind, together as like 2 families, so to speak, there would be 9 of us all together. Just keep that in mind. One of the times we were visiting, I remember they had an NES, and one of the games they had was Mega Man 3. And a bunch of us were playing it, and then my brother made these little like paper doll figure things out of Mega Man and the 8 bosses. And he cut pictures of each of us out. He took pictures of each of us and then cut our faces out and put it in the robots' faces, so it looked like we were the characters. Like, I remember, the ones I remember, he was Mega Man, I was Hard Man, Jimmy was Gemini Man, Jimmy Gemini, try and say that 3 times fast. But, yeah, the other ones I don't really remember, but, yeah. So, moving on to the Super Nintendo, this was a hard one because, as I say all the time, Super Nintendo being my favorite console of all time. There's so many great games on there, but I had to go with Turtles in Time. Yeah, it's the reason this is just such a fun, nostalgic game. Like, I mean, all of them are. Well, not all of them, but for one thing, going against the grain a bit, it holds up better than the show that it's based off of. Like, see, the 87 cartoon series, I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for it. I still have fun watching it and everything, but it's definitely not the masterpiece that I remember from when I was a kid. But the game is still very enjoyable. I've even seen younger generations enjoy it. Like, my nephews like it. Like, the music is just so good, and like the beat 'em up and the action is so fluent. Because that's the thing, beat 'em ups are my favorite video game genre, and I feel like the 16-bit era was a time where they really shined. Yeah, I think it's just the repetitiveness is part of the reason I love beat-em-ups. Pretty sure assembly line jobs aren't really around anymore. Like, one thing that comes to mind is the episode of I Love Lucy when they're packaging the candy. See, if those were still around, I would love to do that for a living. But another thing is, beat-em-ups, they tend to remind me of like all the action martial arts type shows and movies that I used to watch as a kid all the time. Yeah. Love that game. Oh, yeah. Next, N64 Star Fox 64. One of my favorite games of all time. This game, I remember... this game is like... I literally know the whole thing by heart. Like, all the levels, the layouts of the levels, like, enemies coming out of where, and all the dialogue, everything. I know this whole game by heart, and it just never gets old. Absolutely. Like, maybe I'm just a sucker for space shooters, because I remember God, going to the arcade in the 90s, one of the games that I was drawn to the most were shooters and obviously beat-em-ups. Especially like, these classic type rail shooters and like side-scrolling shooters like Darius and R-Type and all that stuff. But and another thing with the Star Fox is like, I mean, what's not to love? It's like a bunch of animal people fighting an intergalactic war. And if we ever do see new Star Fox games down the road, there's still, hopefully we'll see new characters because there's still a huge animal kingdom for an endless, endless opportunities for new characters. Like, personally, I would love to see a raccoon and a bat. But back to this, I think another reason is because it reminds me a lot of like the classic Star Wars movies, the original trilogy. I grew up watching those throughout the 90s. I remember the two battles that always stuck out in my mind were the Battle of Hoth for Episode 5 and the space battle at the end of Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Those, always love that type of space battle, type of sci-fi ships flying around, blasting each other and stuff. And of course, the one with Hoth, like when you have the walkers and they're tripping and stuff. And you see kind of that type of stuff in Star Fox. So GameCube, Skies of Arcadia Legends. Now, this game was actually a Dreamcast game, and this is technically a port, or it's like a remaster of the game. But this is such an amazing JRPG. It's a must-play game if you can find it, because unfortunately it's rare and expensive. Maybe you better spent would be emulation, even though I know GameCube games tend to be tricky to emulate. But it's the best way to describe it is like you think of like Final Fantasy games with the airships, like how that they used to fly around and stuff. It's like that, except you don't go. The ground is like all in the air. Like it's how like you use ships to go to islands and stuff. Like you go across the ocean to the island. That's basically what this is. Except instead of being in the ocean, it's up in the air. But the combat system is very unique. It's, there's like different types of like elements and stuff, and there's actually like, because of this, it's because of there's like 6 moons. Each one has like a different type of energy. Like for example, the red moon gives off a lot of heat, so the land underneath that is all desert. And one of my favorites, the green moon, is I think like nature or life or something like that. So the land underneath that is all like forests and stuff. The people that live in like tree houses, kind of like Endor. And you actually go to all these different places throughout the game, because you're fighting against this evil empire trying to take over the world. That's just kind of the abridged version. That's a lot more to it than that. But this is such an amazing RPG. Now the Wii. Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. I think this was the 3rd or 4th game that I bought for the system. But, it's a direct even though it came out 3 years later, it's a sequel to the game Path of Radiance, because I think I talked about this in my Wii collection. And it's such an awesome game. This is definitely my favorite game in the franchise. Because it's just, the story is just so good. It gets a little hard at the end, but whatever, I like a challenge. A lot of great characters. The music is good. And just overall, an amazing game. I talked about it more in my Wii video, collection video. So for the Wii U, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Now I know this was also on the Switch. It's a a Switch launch title, but whatever. I don't have that version, so. Absolutely phenomenal game. It started off a little slow. Like I'm like, I don't know. But then as it progresses, I'm like, wow, this is really good. And I love like open world games. Like if they're done right, or if they're in like a genre that I feel like it fits. Like I know they did it with Gears of War 5 and Dynasty Warriors 8 or 9 or something. And it's like okay, like for those type of games, I feel like it just doesn't really fit. But for other games, it does really well. And this is one where it's just. It does do it really well. And the thing I do like about open world games is just that it's just like you can just kind of do whatever you want, so to speak. It's just like endless exploration. You're just walking around and like wandering around, getting lost, and just I don't know. I just love that type of stuff when you're in like the mood for it, so to speak. It depends on what you're in the mood to play. Now the last one, or I should say the Switch game, Fire Emblem Warriors. I know, seems kind of weird, right? Oh wait, I grabbed the wrong game. This is Three Houses. I meant to grab Warriors, but well, anyway, yeah, it's Fire Emblem Warriors, which I can't believe it. Whatever. That was one of the games that made me buy the Switch, and I would love to see a sequel because, and it's like, it's funny. I actually was looking around a little, and I found an article that said, like Koei and all them, and like said that they really enjoyed working with like the Fire Emblem franchise, and they would love to do like another Fire Emblem Warriors game, but there's no like word on it or anything. But and here's the thing, that article I found was from over 4 years ago, so you know it's been quite a few years. Maybe there is one coming around the corner, coming in the future. But yeah, again, I love the Dynasty Warriors games because again, I just love like the repetitiveness of them, and with the Fire Emblem Warriors, I have like all these different characters from different Fire Emblem games, like interacting with each other and everything, and you just like, there's just a lot of replayability to that game. You know, I went back into it recently. I'm still working on the history mode to try and unlock all the portraits and stuff. You know, like build bonds between characters and things like that. It's just, I wish there were some more characters like from, like Radiant Dawn and Path of Radiance and stuff. So like, cause it had characters from, I think it's Shadow Dragon, the one with Marth. I believe that's Shadow Dragon, and Awakening and Fates, which are great games, but you know, I wish they kind of still had like Ike in them and like Makai and such. You know, and they had Lind from the one that came out in 2003, but that's about it. It's a lot of like the more recent characters. I would love to see some of the more classic characters, especially since you know we had a new Fire Emblem game, and then Echoes was remastered and stuff. So, you know, like I said, I'd love to see a sequel down the road, which maybe that's coming. Like I said, that article I found where they said they'd love to do another one was from 4 years ago. But anyway, yeah, so those are my favorite games for each Nintendo console, or my most favorite game for each one. So, is there any you can think of? Like, do you have a favorite game for each console, or maybe just for most of them, or a lot of them, whatever? I'd love to hear them, so let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.